Okay, so we are looking at the review of honors. How are honors reviewed, or who reviews the honors? We are just looking at the whole process. I'm sure we all know what we mean by honors. What is an honor? Anyone who can just give a brief understanding of what they know about honors, or what they understand. What are we talking about? When I'm talking about an honor, what exactly am I talking about?
Award.
Yes. Dr. Mhango?
A particular skill.
Amen. Did you hear that?
Yes.
It's a particular
Skill.
It's a skill. When we are talking about a skill, what exactly are we saying? What is a skill?
You are able to do something the way you know it.
Right. You see, we have very learned people in here, isn't it? He says you are able to do something. I want you to underline the word to do. Meaning it is practical. Am I right? There is something practical about it. Because you are able to actually do it, or you are able to actually demonstrate how something is done. For example, maybe before I give my example, who has an example of a skill that they can just give? Any skill that you can think of? Yes?
Swimming.
Sorry?
Swimming.
Swimming. If I can swim, or if I'm skilled in swimming, isn't it? Or if I'm able to swim, it means that I have that skill of swimming. Is that so?
Yes.
If I'm able to repair a car or do some mechanics, it means that I have that skill. If I'm able to build a house, I have a skill. So basically that is what we are talking about. How then do we assess our learners to say they are skilled in this particular area? So that is basically what we are talking about. Now, so according to the GC Pathfinder Honor Book, page 6, when we are talking about honors, they are saying that it is a course of study that introduces a subject. And this subject that it is introducing should have practical value and should enhance the lifestyle of the person pursuing the honor. So there should also be something that the child benefits after learning that skill. Is it improving them in any way? Are they able to use that skill for something in their lives? That's basically what we are talking about, and that's what we want to explore more. Right? Why do we have honors? Why are honors included in the curriculum? And why should we emphasize that children must do this? The reason is that we want to assist the person or the candidate in his or her development as a well-rounded Christian by directly affecting the social, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects of life. So that's the benefit. And this is the main reason honors were introduced in the curriculum. They were introduced right from the GC in 1928. Now, when you look at honors, we've got many different kinds of honors that we can offer to our clubs. And these honors are in different categories or in different skill levels, depending on the age of the child or the age of the person. Some might not be children. And also depending on their level of understanding. So level 1 is mainly designed for children who are in grade 5 to grade 6. So it means that these are very basic skills. For example, we can talk of maybe, if we give an example of a cooking skill. There are different levels of cooking, am I right? So for a small child, what are some of the things that you expect them to know? Maybe how to boil. Maybe you start with even boiling water, boiling an egg. You teach them the basic of how to fry, the basics of how to bake. And you keep on going until you get to a level where people can even make a proper menu, 3-course, 4-course menu, and so on, isn't it? Bake and all that, but you keep introducing. So these are in levels. So at a particular level, you have level 1, then you have level 2 is for grades 7 to 10. Basically, it's designed for those. And then we have level 5, which is designed for grade 11 and above. You also have advanced honors. Advanced honors are usually designed for people who are 16 and above. Or it could be those who are in the levels 1, 2, 3, but can be challenged more. They need a bigger challenge than the one that is actually there for them. You can have a grade 5, 6 child who is able to do things that are above their level, isn't it? So that's why you can introduce an advanced honor there. So you find that at each stage, usually there is an advanced part. It is just to give those who are very fast learners a challenge, something that can be challenging, more challenging to them. And you also have the master awards are actually earned by candidates who will have done quite a number of honors in specified categories. For example, you can choose from the conference ones, you can choose from the community ones, and so on. And when you pick from all the categories, then that gives you the master award. Right, so now when we are assessing honors, we already agreed that honors are mainly practical in nature. That we have agreed, is that so? Yes. They are usually practical in nature. But it doesn't mean that we don't have theory. We do have theory, but just a little bit of theory. Most of it is practical. So that's why we are saying an ounce of theory to a pound of practice. So you want the children to practice more. And this actually helps because it also affords the candidate a hands-on experience on what they are learning. In order to assess, or in order for an assessment to be effective, it is necessary to know what it is that is being assessed. In the end, when a child has done a particular skill, okay, I'm not talking about honors in general. I am just getting to what I was asked to present, which is the review process, right? Right. So basically when we are reviewing, we are looking at how we are assessing it, right? How we are determining that a candidate has been successful. So that means there is an aspect of assessing. So this assessing, that's why we are saying in order for an assessment to be effective, it is necessary to know what it is that is being assessed. Is that true? Can you assess when you don't know what it is that you're assessing? No. Then is it going to be the conceptual understanding? Is it going to be procedural understanding? Is it going to be process skills or practical skills? What exactly is it that you want to assess? So when children have done their practical work, there is need for that practical work to be assessed, but it can only be assessed if we know what exactly we are looking for. So in assessing skills, we have different types of assessments of practical skills. We have what we call the direct assessment of practical skills, which we will shorten using DAPs, which basically means direct assessment of practical skills. And this is when you are actually assessing a skill directly. As it is being done, you are actually observing what the child is doing or what the candidate is doing. It might not be a child, isn't it? What the candidate is doing. Are they actually able to do it? Are they able to follow the steps that must be followed and get the end product? So it refers to any form of assessment that requires the students, through physical manipulation of real objects, to directly demonstrate a specific generic skill in a manner that can be used to determine their skill level. We also have indirect assessment. So we have direct assessment and indirect assessment. The indirect one refers to any form of assessment in which students' levels of competency in terms of a specific generic skill is indirectly inferred from information they provide. For example, you can have reports, you can have write-ups and all that. When you assess using such information, it means you are doing the indirect assessment, because you haven't seen the candidate actually doing it. You only heard that they did it, and you only saw a report that was written to say, I did A, B, C, D, but you didn't see them doing it. So that one is in an indirect form. But when you actually observe them doing it, or maybe when you do it with them, that now becomes a direct one. Now, what we must take note of, it is always better to assess using the direct one. So, like we said, when you are using the indirect, you can use any form of written reports and direct ones. But like we said, practical skills are best assessed directly, because you are sure that the candidate is able to do it, unlike when you just read a report. So the best when we are assessing these skills is to use both the direct and the indirect. So the report is there, but the child has also done it. You have actually seen them practically doing it. Because when we rely only on the indirect one, we may end up focusing more on what the student should know rather than what they can actually do. Because I can read about a skill, is that so? I can read and master, and children are very good at memorizing. They can memorize the whole method and yet they don't even know how to do it. They can write it on paper and yet they don't even know how to do it. For example, if you want to know whether a grade 1 child is able to tie a shoelace, it's a type of knot, is that so? It's part of knot tying honor. How can you assess that this grade 1 child is able to tie a knot or to tie their shoelace? How can you assess it? Sorry, they will explain to you to say, okay, I put my hand here and I do this, I do that. You watch them as they tie their shoelace. So that is what we do when we are assessing practical work. It is best to actually see the actual thing. Now, we have many people who are involved in assessing these skills. And we also have many tools that we use, but of special or of most importance, we have a competence checklist. We must have a competence checklist. This is a list of activities or performance outcomes that a candidate must be seen to be able to do in order to be considered competent in the task being assessed for the qualification. So we are saying that if we want to assess an owner, like we already said that we must know what is being assessed. The candidate must know what they must do in order to be considered competent. For example, if we look at the evangelism owner, what do you think a candidate must be able to do? They must be able to, somebody says to preach, what must they be able to do? So what is it that is going to be done? What are you going to expect of them? For you to say this one has earned an evangelism honor, what aspects are you looking for? And what is it that you are going to assess? How are you going to even assess it? Because I can come and tell you that I can preach. I can come and tell you that I can do witnessing. I can go. How do you know?
Winning a soul.
How do you know that somebody has won a soul? Even yourself, can you know that you have won a soul?
Yeah.
How?
After preaching, after conducting.
You can't know that you have won a soul. Yes.
If we go by the manual book, there are questions. Under the evangelism, there are questions that the candidate has to fulfill that. So as an instructor, maybe if he says he has actually completed that honor, if he takes that exam and he passes the exam.
Okay, so basically what she's saying is that they must answer the questions that are given on each honor has got some questions. So what if I go and I just take that paper and start answering those questions and I put in my portfolio and I say I did this honor? Is it not possible? To answer those questions, is it difficult? It's not. So what is it that is required? Yes, the questions are there. Yes, the questions must be answered. Yes, this candidate should be able to answer those questions, but is answering those questions earning an honor?
I guess.
Yes.
Maybe he or she has to work on attributes of an evangelist, because that will now determine as to whether he did it.
Okay, he says that the candidate must have the attributes. What are the attributes that they must have for us to say, this one has passed this honor? They must be prayerful, they must be what, but how do you know that? Yes.
How he or she presents him or herself.
Okay, just how he presents him.
She has to be modest, courteous, all those things, as an evangelist.
To me, I suggest it's better to maybe to bring the photos, like that photos should be supposed to prove that he or she is maybe chatting with that soul, maybe chatting or maybe like giving the track. No, I don't know. Can I ask a Mikio? Yes. Ganizola ine nimeona ngati ndibwino munthu uja abweretse maumboni ngati zithunzi akujeza ndi munthu uja kakumpatsa mavyopi track and ride. Yeah, this message akabweresa zikhana umboni waukulu. I don't know in English.
I've understood you very well. Right, so basically what he's saying is that there must be evidence that the candidate has done something. So in other words, what he was saying is they must actually do it. If it means them going door to door, they must go door to door, but this must now be on the requirements. How do we know? So this is what I'm just going to quickly summarize. I've been told that I only have 5 minutes left. I don't know if it would help us. Okay, so in order for, okay, maybe when we want to do honors at our clubs, the first thing, we need to put some honors on offer for the candidates for that year. For example, the AY Council or the club itself, for example, if it is Pathfinder Club or the Adventurer Club, they will say to themselves, the director will call the staff and say, what honors are we offering this year? And they agree that we will offer this one, this one, this one. And when they've offered, then they give those to the student to say, these are the offers that we have for this year. So when they are putting that in place, what is it that we are looking at? What determines which honors we will offer as a club? It depends on the resources that we have. We all agree that honors are practical, and therefore for us to do things, we've got to have things to use. Is that so? So we have to assess ourselves as a club and say, do we have the resources? Do we also have the manpower? The human resources, isn't it? Do we have people who are skilled amongst us, who are able to assess this honor? For example, if a candidate comes and says that I want to do swimming and none of you know how to swim, how are you going to assess? You can't assess. So as a club, you sit down and say, okay, so maybe we can offer swimming, but we ourselves, we don't know how to swim. And therefore, we are going to ask for help from our colleagues who know how to swim. You talk to them, you make sure that you have people who are going to assess that skill, who already have the skill to assess someone else in that skill. If you don't have any people who know that skill, then don't offer that honor, because you are not going to be able to determine whether the candidate is successful or not. But you can also source out from other clubs, from the union, from the conference, from the zone, people who are skilled enough. So we have put in place, we also have a checklist, because you'd find that the honors are there in the honor book. But how you should implement might not necessarily be there. For example, you would find that an honor will just show you the requirements, but not how to actually do it. So as a club, you are going to say, how are we going to make sure that this has been achieved? What do you do? Then you make up your checklist of what you are going to expect the candidate to be able to do in that particular honor. For example, if it is not tying, what is it that you are going to require from the candidate for you to give them the award, to say now you are good at not tying? Some are stipulated, isn't it? But are they actually going to, maybe you might actually say, we actually want to see the noteboard. So they've done their honors, their notes, then they must display them on a noteboard. You must be able to see them doing it. Maybe they've made camp furniture, and we must be able to see the chair that they've made using the skill that they gained. That way, then you say, okay, this one has achieved. Now, there are so many players, and everybody is responsible for making sure that we produce quality work. So, everyone who is involved in practical assessment is responsible for the quality. Because it doesn't help to give somebody an award, give them honors, and yet tomorrow if you ask them to say, can you teach this, they can't. Once you have awarded somebody an honor, you are saying they are now skilled. If they are skilled, they should be able to teach others in that particular skill. And so we say that we have several players who are responsible for assessing or reviewing honors after they've been done. The first, we have the GC, the SID, the SMC, whichever. They are responsible for quality by ensuring that they develop policies and procedures that are valid and reliable. Then we have teachers and instructors. Tell me, who is the best person to know whether a child can perform a skill or not? Is it the external verifier? Who? The instructor. So the instructor is the best person to know whether a child can do a skill or not, whether they are successful or not. And therefore, that is the first person who actually assesses the candidates. So when we are looking at these honors, they are mainly assessed by the teacher or the instructor. Why? Because they are the ones who spend time with the child, and they can see what they can do and what they cannot do. If they say that this child has got, they are able to do flowers, right? How are you going to know as an external assessor? You can't know. It's only the teacher who can see the child do it. The teacher will be able to do, even suppose we talk of camp skills. The verifiers are not there to see that child do the camp skills. It is the club director who is always there with the child, who can determine whether the child has been successful or not. What then will the external verifier do? Do they have any role? So the external verifier then comes. So you are the external verifier, isn't it? When you go there, you are not going to know. How do you think you are going to know whether this child has managed to do this honor or not? You look at what is in the portfolio that Stuart was talking about. What evidence has been provided, but the decision to say the child is able to swim comes from the club director. And you can't really argue about it because you don't know. You were never there and you have never seen them. But you can request for evidence to say, okay, you said this child is able to swim. Can I see evidence? Probably they'll show you a picture of the child swimming in the swimming pool, whatever has been put in the portfolio. Maybe a write-up of how we do the crawl, how we do backstroke, and so on. And that one now is what you have as evidence. There are some things that where real products can be displayed as evidence, but there are some where you have pictures and the write-ups that show that indeed this particular thing was done, or the child is able to do this. So the onus of deciding whether a child has achieved is with the teacher or the instructor at club level. And you only verify to say, is there evidence? And that is where we end as verifiers. And then the rest, I'm sure you will find in the booklet. You can read it further. Whatever I've left out because of the time. But I think the general thing, that is what we do when we are assessing honors.